Are you looking to buy your first rental property in your own name? Wait. In this video I'm going to explain why I set up a limited company to buy my property and why you might want to as well. Hi, I'm Mike. So glad you could join me. Here's my story on why I set up a limited company to buy property. So I decided to set up a limited company to house my property investments. I already had 2 properties in my own name, and when I worked out the profits after tax, I was horrified that I just about broke even. So both properties were on a repayment model, so at least the capital was being paid off, and I was better off each month with the increased equity. But from a monthly cash flow point of view, I was cash flowing positive, but when I did the annual self-assessment, the tax I had to pay swallowed up all these profits. And here's the background. This was all because of Section 24 legislation. And without getting political, it was unwelcome news for private landlords. And aside from that, it also was unwelcome news for tenants. Either rents would have to go up to pay for the increased tax, or there would be fewer rental properties to find as landlords sell up. And this has proved to be the case. So Section 24 was a piece of legislation which meant you couldn't count the interest payment as an allowable expense for tax purposes. So my mind was made up and I decided to set up a limited company to buy my properties, and this is how I did it. First, I sold one of the properties that was in my own name, so I had to pay capital gains tax on that, but I used the profits from that to buy 2 more properties, but this time within a limited company. So the first job was to set up a limited company, and this was really easy to do. I checked Companies House to see if my name was available, so I just went online, purchased an inexpensive provider to set up the memorandum and articles of association and all the other documents. And the whole thing cost about £25, and I could download the documents that very same day without having to wait for the post. Next, I found a local accountant who had knowledge and expertise in property investing, and mine also had his own properties. In hindsight, I would have discussed it all with the accountant first before setting up the limited company. But I felt I had enough knowledge. Now the hardest part was actually getting the bank account set up. I opted for Starling Bank as they've got really low fees and it offers an online service. But most importantly, the reviews were excellent. Now I had to go through a few hoops to finally get approved, but the entire process took a couple of weeks. But once I'd got that, I was good to go. So if this has piqued your interest and you're interested in setting up a limited company, here are the benefits. So the first obvious benefit is the tax perspective. If you buy in your own name, as a higher rate taxpayer, any profits will be taxed at 40% or 45%, depending on what tax bracket you are. And also you can't offset interest payments as an allowable expense. But under a limited company, tax is more generous. So you pay corporation tax, which is currently 19%, for profits up to £50,000 per year. Now for me, I wasn't likely to get profits of £50,000 per year straight away, unless I chose to sell one of the properties. Also on tax, you don't pay capital gains tax in a limited company if you do come to sell. This is treated as income, so the profits will be taxed at 19% or whatever the bracket is. And this is much better than the 28% that you charged on capital gains tax. Also, from a legal standpoint, having a limited company's got advantages, as the company is a separate entity from you as the individual. So you don't actually own the property as an individual. You own the limited company, and the limited company owns the property. So you still have complete control. The inheritance tax situation was also a big one for me. I know that when my time comes, my beneficiaries will not meet a hefty inheritance tax bill. So I've set up a trust. So my beneficiaries are trustees of that trust, and the limited company will go straight into that trust when I depart. But in full balance, I have to talk about the disadvantages. So when I researched whether to set up a limited company, I made sure I took account of the disadvantages. And here are some that are worthwhile considering. Firstly, there's the additional administration costs. You have to submit your company accounts, and you also have to register a company with Companies House, which also means doing an annual statement to Companies House. There's also extra legal fees. You have to appoint a conveyancer to represent the mortgage lender, as well as yourself as the purchaser. Now, this can be the same one you chose to represent yourself, but you also have to pay for that legal advice. And that's about £250 because you are the guarantor of the limited company. Next, mortgage fees and rates are also higher, so you have to take that into consideration. So should you form a limited company or not? Well, you should certainly consult an accountant before you do anything to see what difference the fees and the charges would be. Also, do your homework around what additional legal costs and mortgage fees would be. Get quotes from your conveyancer and your mortgage advisor. Next, consider what tax bracket you're in. If you're a higher tax bracket, then a limited company might be right for you. However, do you plan to retire soon, or maybe cut back your hours? And this would move you into a lower tax band. So buying a property in your own name would make sense. But remember though, not to let the tax tail wag the dog. How many properties do you plan to buy? If it's one or two, then buying in your own name might make sense. But the more you buy, the more it would make sense to incorporate. Next, what's your exit strategy? Do you plan to sell on the properties or pass them on to your inheritors? So if the finances still stack up and your property would still be cash flowing positively, then buying properties in a limited company might just be the thing for you. So if you found this useful, hit the subscribe button for more tips on personal finance, mindset and business. And until next time, have a great day, stay positive, and I'll see you soon.